Hello, I am Chef Jill Taylor. This is my third quarter teaching at LaSalle, but I have been in the industry since 2013. I started with bread baking and shortly after that moved on to chocolate and confections. You will find if you continue in the baking and pastry program here at LaSalle that I will be teaching the chocolates and confections course. Recently, I redeveloped it and it has had some great success, so I look forward to seeing some of you there. Let's go over the course syllabus as well as a few other housekeeping items that are needed, that we need to go over before school starts, as they take up a lot of our actual production time, especially in the first week. And I would like to make sure that we get out of the kitchen on time every time. So I'm looking at our course syllabus right here. You should have a copy of it on Omnivox. You may print it off or keep it there if you like, whichever you prefer. This is Culinary 121, or Introduction to Baking, the Winter 2022 quarter. In this course, students are introduced to the fundamental concepts, skills, and techniques of baking. Special significance is placed on the study of ingredient functions, production identification and weights, and measures as applied to baking. I will be giving a few lectures. Most of those, at least for now, will be recorded and available for you to watch just before the class that week, and we will see how things progress with the pandemic. I will also be doing demonstrations of how to make each product. That will go on for at least the first 4 weeks. After that, you will notice that we do a lot of the same techniques, just creating different products, and you will learn the slight differences that can take something like bread that is flour, yeast, water, and salt, and make a plethora of different products. As much as we can with the pandemic, we will do some tasting and testing of your products that you make, but we will have to keep assessing that one as the weeks go on. You will be learning yeast-raised doughs and how to mix those, how to make pie doughs, quick dough, cookie dough, and how to finish your products. There will be a practical exam at the end. I will go over that a little bit later, as well as a few other ways that I will be testing your knowledge and capabilities. For this quarter, we will be meeting Mondays from 1 until 6 p.m. in the evening, that is, in Kitchen 1. As I said, I am Chef Jill Taylor, and you can send me either a MEO or an email to jtaylor@lasallecollegevancouver.com. I am a part-time instructor. I do not actually have an office, so no office hours. I am absolutely available by email and MEO. I check those every couple of days. And if you would like to talk in person, please set up an appointment through, again, either email or MEO, or talk to me in class would work as well. Please come to me with any questions or concerns. Let me know if things feel like they're going too slowly for you, or if there are things you're struggling with understanding. That's what I'm here for. I will help you navigate that and figure out what you need in order for you to succeed. The course length is 11 weeks. We guarantee 10 weeks of teaching, as sometimes sickness or injury can prevent us from meeting for a regularly scheduled class. We've even had weather prevent us from meeting before. So, but I will, of course, be in touch about that as soon as I am able to make the call. It's 33 hours of time in the kitchen. I am trying to maximize that as best I can by recording the lecture part of the class so that we have as much of our 5-hour time in the kitchen dedicated to our production. There is, of course, an hour of setup, or what's called mise en place, and there is about 45 minutes of cleanup at the end. The course, upon completion, you will receive 3 credits for this course, or if anything else has been discussed with our academic director. Course competencies upon completion. 1, that you will demonstrate the correct usage of basic baking equipment and tools. We will use them every single day in class. You will definitely get to know those tools and equipment. 2, list and discuss correct selection and utilization of baking supply and ingredients. Like I said, we will be going over some of the tiny little or major differences that you can make to a recipe to create something completely different. You will be able to list and demonstrate the skills in mixing, production, and finishing of a variety of yeast-leavened products. So things like your typical bread, whole wheat bread, sourdough bread, white bread, those kinds of things, buns. You will also be able to list, discuss, and demonstrate the skills in mixing, production, and finishing of a variety of basic cookies, pies, and quick breads. Quick breads meaning things like banana bread, muffins, scones, things like that. Those are considered quick breads. You will also be able to list, discuss, and demonstrate baking industry standards for sanitary product use and storage. Hopefully you will remember from safety and sanitation in the previous quarter, and we won't have to cover too much on that. However, with the pandemic, we have to be very, very diligent with washing our hands 20 seconds at a time, as often as you are able to. We will be sanitizing our tables and equipment as often as you are able to. And everybody will have to wear a mask all course, or all class rather, unless you are tasting something that you have made. And if that is the case, then you need to make sure that you are safely away from anybody else before you remove your mask to sample something. So there are a few instructional methods that I will be using. One of them being the lecture. Every one of the lectures should be done by me in this course. We don't typically have any guests. There will be demonstrations, discussions, not so much group work this time around. You are allowed to ask me questions and at any point in time except during your final exam. And there will be some quizzes and exams, as I spoke about a little bit ago. Materials and supplies required: your standard school issue knife kit, your cook's uniform, and you will need a few other things like a permanent black marker, pen. If you don't already have them, pastry tips are very useful. A metal bench scraper can be a useful thing as well. Scissors, I would require those. A calculator, everybody has a calculator on their phone, that will be fine. You will need some index cards. 3 by 5 inch index cards are preferred. However, if you want to keep all of your recipes in a small book, that's up to you. A little notebook, you may do that as well. And if it is possible, especially if you are continuing in the baking and pastry courses, it would be a really good idea to get an electronic scale of your own. We do have a couple of them in the kitchen for use, but they are not always available. Everybody shares them, and sometimes the batteries die and it's a while before they're replaced. estimated amount of homework is going to be about 4 hours per week. There will be some reading in our textbook on baking. Very, very good textbook. I use it constantly in my own home kitchen as well. So there'll be some reading in there as outlined in the course syllabus. There will be your journals, excuse me, and preparing your recipe cards. I'll get to that a little bit further on in this discussion, or in this video rather. And I still recommend, even though I'm going to be going over it right now, I really recommend taking a look at the course syllabus, read it through as best you can. There are many, many different policies that are important for you to understand as a student. Policies on attendance, late assignments, cheating, things like that, that are very important to be quite clear on, so that if something comes up, you understand what's going on. Let me just check my notes here. Oh, and there is very clear information on what is required to receive a passing grade in this course, which is 55%, 55%, or a D. Okay, so we're going to move on to part of what I'm sure most of you are very interested in. What is the breakdown of the percentage of your grade that each component, is worth? Number one, the biggest one, is your daily grade. There are nine weeks of regular instruction, and then the last 2 weeks are exams, assessments, I'd rather call them. There are assessments as well as a deep clean of the kitchen that we share with everybody else who uses the same kitchen. The daily grade is worth 35% of your final mark. I'm just seeing right now in the course syllabus that I've posted that my percentages are a little bit off. I will update those as soon as I'm done here. 35% of your final mark is your daily grade alone. That's whether you show up, whether you wear your uniform, is it clean, do you have your recipe cards, what else is on there, how is your safety and sanitation throughout the day of production, and then of course how well you complete each product. Then after that, the next highest percent, there's two things. Your final practical assessment is worth 20%, and the 7 quizzes are worth 20% as well. That's 40% of your mark right there is done in the weekly quizzes, which are 20 marks each, and then your final practical. That is a big one. We will talk about it many, many times before it gets to there, and you will have time to practice every single recipe that is on that. I like to be very transparent with you on what happens with that exam or assessment, as I do want everybody to succeed. Okay, after that, we have the next biggest would be your reflections or your daily journals. There are 9 of those, one for every single week when we do a regular class. They are worth 10%. There is, where did I put that page? I have it saved on my computer. Let me pull that up, of marking criteria for reflections. This will also be on Omnivox for you to take a look at if you need a refresher. So in the top left corner, you must have your name, student number, current grade, and chef's name, Chef Jill. They are valued at 10% of the total course mark, all 9 of them. You must submit 1 reflection every week for a total of 9 entries. And it is also important to remember, keep these reflections saved as they are part of your final portfolio. Getting to that in a minute. To receive a mark for your reflection, students must meet the following criteria. 1. Describe the key points of the lesson, which include the menu. Give me a list of the products that you are making. Pictures of your products. Very important, especially when it comes to the portfolio. Take pictures. They don't have to be amazing, but I would like to see your products so that when I come around to reading your reflections, it helps me to remember how things went in the class for you. What are the methods of mixing? How did you bake the products? And what was your outcome? 2, create a timeline for the class. That is something I will demonstrate for you just about every single day that we are in the kitchen and help you to understand how to make one of those. For the first couple of weeks, copy down what I write on the board, take a picture of it, type it into your journal. Perfect. Then following that, I will need a list of temperatures for each item. So if we're making blueberry muffins, put down the temperature for blueberry muffins. That's it. One line. Blueberry muffins. Temperature 350 degrees, 40 minutes. Next line. What do we make the first week? Peanut butter sandies, peanut butter cookies. Temperature 325 degrees, 15 minutes. Great. For each of the products, that's all I'm asking for on that part. Next, you'll discuss your personal thoughts about your production. This is very, very important to me. This is the part of your reflection that is the most important for me. It helps me understand how you are doing with the course. Is it too easy? Is it too hard? Do you not understand why your products aren't working? This is a chance for me to have a little insight into how things are going for you and whether I need to reach out and help you out, or if I can give you a little bit of space in the class and let you try things on your own. I also would like to have some description of the critiques that I give you, both in class as well as on OmniVox. This, as well as the giving me your current grade at the top of the reflection, helps me to know whether or not, or shows me whether or not you are actually checking OmniVox, whether you are reading things, whether you are listening in class. That's an important check for me. You can always just copy and paste my comments as written, or you can rewrite them yourself. That is up to you. And then finally, if you have any questions at the end of the class and you aren't able to ask them in class, write them down on your reflection. I will respond to you in OmniVox on that. And those questions can be anything from, Chef, I still don't understand why my bread just won't rise. Can you please explain to me what should be happening, what is happening with mine? Or if I what would happen if I changed the peanut butter in my peanut butter cookies for Nutella? They're delicious. Absolutely a wonderful idea to make that substitution. But please give me any questions. If you don't have any questions, don't worry about it. You don't need to make something up. But if you have any questions, please put them in there. I will respond in OmniVox, as I said. Okay, that covers reflections. And then your final 15% is your midterm, your final written exam, and your portfolio. Each are worth 5% of your final grade. The midterm is 40 marks, your final written exam is 80 marks, and your portfolio is 100 marks. It's a lot of marks for a small percent, but believe me, I have in the past had students not hand in a portfolio, and that was the difference between them passing and not passing. So have something to hand in. If you've written every single one of your reflections, that's easy. Put your reflections, your pictures, and a few thoughts into your portfolio, and you will receive something. I will show you here. This is going to be handed out in class as well, your portfolio assignment. This is giving you an idea of what I will be marking, how I will be marking. Please don't take down this. I have to change this. It's a different address, email address for that one. I'll get to that in just a second. Portfolios due in week 10. We used to present them. They don't need to be presented anymore. But I do need them in week 10 so that I have the time to mark those and get your marks in before the quarter is over. You'll be expected to take pictures of your work throughout the term and integrate them into this assignment. You are expected to tell a chronological story of the class and your progress in it. Besides pictures, your portfolio should include, these are important, all of your reflection entries throughout the course, all of your timelines, any notes that you take during lectures or demos, any particular insights that have struck you during the course, an explanation of how this course will relate to your work when you leave school, a summary of the course. This document must be typed and submitted with a cover page that includes your name, the course title and number, Culinary 121, and the instructor name, Chef Jill. It will be marked based upon 5 different criteria. Neatness of presentation, that's 10 points. Detail of content is 40 points. Chronological order is 10 points. Summary, 20 points. And then uploading your portfolio to the LCI website is worth 20 points. I will be giving you, that's what this email address on the back was supposed to be for. I will be giving you the updated email address for the person who will help you to upload your portfolios. Let me see, what else do I have? Okay, the final exam, let's go over that a little bit. The final exam is broken up into 2 parts. One is a written or a knowledge assessment, and then the other one is a skills assessment or the practical exam. Your practical exam, I've got it right here. And I will be giving this to you as well. This is what you will be given for your practical exam. All right? You'll be given that's practical final, what it is and what your expected yield is. This will become, if you're reading this going, I don't understand, this will become a lot more apparent when we are in class. And then your ingredients, it will already be scaled to what you need, the amount that you need, but no temperatures, no time, no method, all right? Might seem really scary at this point. However, by the time that you get to the final exam in 10 weeks' time, it should be a little bit easier for you. But that is part of what I am assessing. It will consist of 3 main recipes with 1 smaller recipe that is all outlined in your course syllabus. And we will be making every single one of those products at least 2 times in the course, or in the quarter rather. You will be introduced to them at one point, and then in week 8, we will, actually be doing a practice of your practical exam. And that is your time to ask me every single question that you have. That is when I will give you, after that day, I will give you this booklet for you to take home and take a look at, make sure that you know what you are doing. But of course, before that happens, I will talk to you a little bit more about that. All right. I wanted to talk a little bit about the recipe cards and the journal. Or the reflection. Talked a little bit about the reflections and how those help me understand how things are going for you and what you understand of the course so far. The recipe cards they're quite important for helping you to prepare for the day. It shows me that you have taken the time to find the recipes in the textbook. They will all come from On Baking, except For one, I will provide a handout for. That is at the very end of the course. But it also gives you a chance to take a look at the recipes themselves and the methods and make sure that you know what you are doing. As the quarter goes on, you will start to see that one, between our class and the class in Kitchen 2, we will probably use all of the plastic prep containers. So that what helps is when you are reading your recipes ahead of time, you will see that, oh, maybe I can put the butter and sugar together in one container because those two get mixed together right away. I could put my eggs and my vanilla together in another one. Excuse me, instead of using 4 containers, you've actually only used 2. And it means that when we get into class, you already have a basic understanding of what it is that we are going to work on for the day. So there should be fewer questions, meaning we will get out on time. 6 o'clock, that is my goal every single day that we are in the classroom, that we are out on time. Now, I have a few rules for the pastry kitchen. You will be learning these, or you will be hearing these in other courses as well, and some of them will be the same as the culinary side, the rules there. So things like all equipment must be put away clean and dry in its proper place. Mixers will not be put away until they are clean and dry and have all of their attachments together. They will have the bowl, a paddle attachment, a whisk attachment, and a dough hook. Every single one of those at the end of every single class, and our mixers will be wiped clean. Just makes it a lot easier, and it's a lot more fair for the next class to use the room. Mixers will only be carried by the base. We won't be carrying them by the top. This might make a little more sense once we are in the kitchen, as the mixers that we use look like they have a handle on the top, and they don't. Please do not lift from that part. The large metal rolling pins do not get put in the water. They end up filling up with water and then they rust inside, and that rusty water eventually comes out on somebody else's product, and it's not very nice. They can just be scraped clean with your bowl scraper and then sanitized using the sanitizer and a green cloth. Cake turntables, not important for our course, but in Intro to Pastry, it is important to remember that they do not get put in water either. They can also just be scraped clean and then wiped with sanitizer and a green cloth. The proofers, which we will be using when we are doing yeasted breads, need to be checked before being turned on. We will do a quick demo of how to check them and how to turn them on and make sure that they are ready for use. We will be doing that as well with both kinds of ovens. There are 2 different kinds of ovens in the kitchen, in kitchen 1, and I will be going over how to turn those on with you, with the expectation that by week 4 again that you are able to take care of those on your own. Sheet pans should not be put away greasy or dirty. They must be cleaned after that. The half sheet pans can go through the dishwasher in kitchen 2, and the large sheet pans have to be done by hand. Do not waste the parchment, please. If you only need half a sheet, only use half a sheet. Please don't just fold it over and call it a half sheet. Cut that sheet in half and share with your neighbor, or hold on to it until the next product that you need to bake on a half sheet tray again. When using a silpat, which is a very fancy, expensive, non-stick mat for baking, you will not use anything sharp on it. You will remove your products from the silpat before you cut them. If you spill something on the floor or your station, you are expected to clean it up as soon as you possibly can. This is a safety and sanitation thing. Think about it. If you spilled oil at your station and then you walked away and somebody didn't know that there was oil there and they stepped on it, they could slip, fall, hurt themselves, knock things over, all kinds of things could happen. So please be aware, if anything falls off of your table, put it back, clean it up as soon as you possibly can. You are expected to have a clean, tidy, and wrinkle-free uniform. I touched on that earlier talking about your daily grade. Your hair should be completely covered by your hat. If you have longer hair, it must be tied up. Ponytail, braids, bun, doesn't matter as long as it's not just flowing freely. Get it tucked up inside your hat as best you can. If this becomes a problem and you are unable to keep your hair contained, we will find some hair nets for you. It is extremely important for sanitation purposes to keep our hair out of our products. And if you have longer hair, it can also be a safety thing. You do not want to get your hair caught in the whip attachment when you are whipping cream. Trust me, that would not be okay. We work on a 2-strike rule, 2 strikes for sanitation. You have 2 or more sanitation infractions in a day, you will lose half of your daily grade. Not just the part for safety and sanitation. If the day is out of 40 and you were going to get 39, doesn't matter, you're immediately knocked down to 20, now you're getting only 19. If I have to talk to you twice about your sanitation. If you have any questions on that, please let me know and I will go over it until you understand. Okay, now we're going to go on to a little bit of, almost done, I promise. We're going to go on to just a couple of little things about different formulas that you will need to know. Yes, there is some math involved. It is quite basic, and if you understand it, it makes your life very, very easy. It will come in handy. For the first little while, I provide you with the recipes, as well as I have converted your yield and how much of each ingredient you will need. But again, after about week 4, I will tell you what the product is that we're making. There will not be a page number. You will need to know how to use the index of the textbook to find it, to find your recipe, and then you will need to convert it, to scale it down. Most of them will be scaled down. The recipes in the book usually make 2 or 3 loaves of bread, or 2 dozen cookies, and we make 1 dozen cookies or 1 loaf of bread, and you'll need to understand how to convert your recipe in order to not have too large of a yield. First, though, some of the simpler ones for things like yeast, I will be giving you this piece of paper. Keep it handy. If you need to, write these down somewhere. This comes up every quarter. Sometimes, so there are 3 different kinds of yeast. There is fresh yeast, which comes in a big block. It almost looks like a block of butter. And it's a grayish brown color inside. It's a large block. There's instant yeast and active dry yeast. 3 different kinds that we will be using in the kitchen. And each one is prepared differently. So fresh yeast has a very short life. Yeast is a living thing. The yeast is covered in your first or second readings of the course. And it's a living organism. When it is fresh, which is what you will find most often in a commercial bake shop, it has a life of about a month, no more than that. Once it starts to smell like stinky cheese, it's gone, it's done. But It is very easy to work with. It takes no prep time whatsoever, and you can find it for fairly cheap in a lot of places. However, you can't find it in the regular grocery store. In the regular grocery store, you will find instant yeast or active dry. So these are two different ways that manufacturers have come up with prolonging the shelf life of yeast. Instant yeast has a lot of its water removed, so that big block of fresh yeast gets scaled down into teeny tiny little pieces that then just need to be woken up with some water. There is a difference, however, in how much yeast you're going to need, because the fresh yeast has a bunch of water in it. The instant yeast has water removed. So there's a conversion there that has to happen. Active dry yeast can be stored on the shelf for 6 months. Once you've opened the container, the other two need to stay in the fridge to keep them to their final date, that their best before date. Active dry yeast can, like I said, sit in your cupboard for 6 months. It does need to be woken up. It needs to be rehydrated. There's about a 15-minute period there where you need to just let your yeast sit in some water. And that changes as well your formula. You need extra water for it. So if your recipe calls for fresh yeast, but all you have is active dry yeast, you multiply the amount of fresh yeast that your recipe calls for by 0.5 or 1/2 to give the amount of active dry. This way you will end up with the same amount of yeast activity. That's what we're looking for. It's the yeast activity in the formula. So here we have it all laid out for you, that if you are using compressed or fresh yeast and your recipe calls for compressed yeast, you need to bring it down to active dry yeast because that's what you actually have. You need to multiply the amount of your fresh yeast by 0.5 to get the amount of active dry yeast that you will need. Okay? And this sheet covers all of those conversion numbers for you. I will be handing this out, like I said. Please keep it handy. Another thing that we need to think about when working with yeast is temperature. So there's hydration and temperature for yeast. Yeast works best between 75 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You will find as well that in this course, in the baking kitchen, we do jump from Celsius to Fahrenheit from time to time, and I will do my best to make sure that it is completely clear whether we are using Fahrenheit or Celsius. So with yeast, it needs to be at a temperature of between 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So there is a desired dough temperature. We want it somewhere in that window. We usually shoot for about 77 degrees Fahrenheit to make sure that we're not too hot, not too cold, for the optimal yeast productivity, right? If your final dough temperature after kneading, after mixing, is 77 degrees Fahrenheit, you know that it will take 1 hour for its first ferment. Again, this stuff will be talked about in your reading as well as in the classroom, the kitchen classroom. But desired dough temperature, I will also be giving you this piece of paper in class. What we need to figure out for desired dough temperature is the temperatures of everything affecting your bread. That includes the room temperature, the temperature of your ingredients, and well, those are the basic things. But there's also you do need to factor in as well the friction, the heat created by moving the bread during the kneading process. But the only one that we actually have control over is under the ingredients, we have control over the water temperature. The rest of them, Your flour, salt, sugar, anything like that that you get out of the pantry is going to be room temperature. And then anything that comes out of the fridge will be fridge temperature. Anything that would come out of the freezer temperature. So most likely you won't have anything coming out of the freezer to put into your bread. So the formula for figuring out your water temperature, we're looking for the DDT, desired dough temperature, which is 77, right? 77 Fahrenheit. We want it at that temperature for optimal yeast productivity. Desired dough temperature is found by, or the way that we find it, the way that we get to it and find the temperature that our water needs to be at is we take our desired dough temperature, 77. We multiply that by the number of factors, room temperature, ingredient temperature, friction, but we don't have to factor that into this formula. It's assumed in there already. Minus the total value of factors, which will equal your water temperature. Don't worry, I'm going to keep explaining that. Here we go. Your room temperature is 84 degrees Fahrenheit, let's say. Fairly typical. Your egg temperature, so which would include anything that you are taking out of the fridge, whether you are using cold butter, you most likely won't. But if you've got eggs, if you have milk or any dairy of any kind in there, cheese, that's going to be at about 4 degrees Fahrenheit because that's the temperature of the fridge. Your flour temperature, anything along the lines of flour, sugar, sometimes we'll use milk powder, anything that would be just out of your pantry or cold storage should be about room temperature. Here they're giving it as 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Very similar, right? We add up those numbers and it gets us 170. Okay? The factors are indicated as hold on, I'm trying to read that backwards. The factors are indicated as the ingredients in room temperature. Therefore, there are 3 factors in this example. Room temperature, egg temperature, flour temperature, right? 3 factors equaled 170. So back to our original formula up here at the top. Desired dough temperature, 77, times number of factors, 3, right? We've got 1, 2, 3 factors here. Minus this number, the total value of the factors, okay? So we got 170 here. We put in 170. 77 times 3 minus 170 equals 61 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the temperature we want for our water, then when we're measuring out our water. This formula does not work perfectly when you try to change it into Celsius, which is why we use Fahrenheit for this. There is, where is it? Page 173 in On Baking talks about desired dough temperature in a lot more detail than I am giving you right now. I'm not going to go over all of the detail over it because I'm expecting you to do your reading as well. I covered the yeast conversion. We covered desired dough temperature. Okay, conversion factor. One more piece of math to deal with. This one I don't have the handout for at the moment, so I will do a little writing on this for you, and I'll show you what's going on. I will also put this up on the board when we are in class, just to make sure that everybody understands what's happening. So, sometimes you are given a recipe which makes 3 loaves of bread. I'm writing this down as I'm saying it. 3 loaves of bread. Okay? But you are asked to make only 1. Very typical of this course, actually, that we will have a larger number and bring it down to a smaller one. So 3 loaves down to 1. New yield. Okay, we've got 3 loaves of bread. We want only one. How are we going to get the number that we're going to multiply every ingredient by? I apologize if you hear that. That's my child. What is the number that we are going to multiply the rest of the ingredients by in order to convert our recipe to only yield 1 loaf of bread? Well, we take conversion factor is the new yield. Like I said, I'm writing this down. Divided by the old yield, okay? Oops, get that out of the way. Originally had 3 loaves in the recipe. We only want 1 loaf. New yield divided by old yield equals the conversion factor. So we have the new yield is 1, and that is divided by 3, so 1/3, right? And you would use the number 0.33 for that. So then you would go back to your recipe and you would say, okay, flour, multiply by 0.33, and that's going to give you the amount of flour that you need. The next one down, probably water. Water, I need this amount in the recipe that I was originally given, but for 1 loaf, I'm going to multiply that amount by 0.33. Again, everything in that recipe is multiplied by the same conversion factor. Okay? If we were going the other way around and we actually wanted to have 3 loaves and our recipe only calls for, no, I just did that part wrong on my book. A recipe is only for 1 loaf of bread and we want 3. So we would take 3 divided by 1 equals 3, right? So we would take, right here, here's our formula written out. We would take every single ingredient, flour, water, yeast, salt, anything else that is in there, multiply that by 3. And that's going to give you the amount of each ingredient that you need in order to create your new yield. If you have any questions on that, like I said, I'm going to go over it briefly in the class on Monday, but please feel free to send me a mail or an email about that, or approach me in the kitchen if you're unsure of what to do there. Again, this is going to be covered in the textbook. There's another one, baker's percentage. I see that we're almost at about an hour here, so I'm going to save baker's percentage for next week. It is in the On Baking book, and it does also get covered in Intro to Pastry. But we will talk about that a little bit in this course as well. Just a couple of last things I wanted to give you, just 3 definitions to help you understand what we are covering in week 1. Straight dough refers to a mixing method used for yeasted doughs in which everything is just thrown into the bowl all at once. Straight dough. It's very easy. There are other kinds of breads where you have to hold certain ingredients back until something else has happened, and we'll cover that at another time though. All you need to know for week 1, straight dough method, everything goes in all together and gets mixed and then kneaded. Creaming method, which you will be using for the cookies and the muffins. It's a mixing method in which typically butter and sugar are mixed together at a high speed, which blends them as well as incorporates some air into there. If you don't cream or you overcream your butter, you will not have the results that your desired results. So it's very important when doing things like cookies that you pay attention to whether or not the butter and sugar need to be creamed together. You'll notice as they are whipping around inside your mixer bowl with the paddle attachment, um, all of a sudden if you're using butter and white sugar, all of a sudden your slightly yellow mixture in there, butter in its natural state is a little bit yellow, the whole mixture will turn almost white. Once your butter and sugar has changed color, this happens too if you're using brown sugar and butter, it will go from a medium brown to a light brown color. Once you notice that change in color, then you know that you are ready to move on to the next step. You have properly creamed your butter and sugar together. And then finally, roll cookies. This is how we will be doing the peanut butter cookies. Very simple idea. You will measure out your cookie dough to the proper weight, which will be given with the recipe. Take that little piece of dough, roll it into a ball with your hands, clean hands, place it on your sheet tray, and then you create the shape that you're looking for. With peanut butter cookies, I will demo it, but they have a very distinct look to them where a fork has been pressed into the top of them to make a couple of lines on top. But like I said, I will demo that in class when we make them. Well, I think that covers everything at this point that we need to talk about. As I have been saying multiple times, please reach out with any questions, any concerns. If you don't know what is going on, if you feel lost, let me know. And I will do what I can to help you get back on track. As much as I'm sure I will like all of you, I don't want to see you back in this course. All right, I want to see everybody moving on to the next courses and where they're wanting to go with their schooling. All right, I look forward to meeting everybody, and let's stay nice and safe during the pandemic, and let's learn a few things. Thank you for listening, and oh, yes, to make sure that you did listen to this entire thing, because this is a very important, a huge part of each class, each week, I will be asking a few questions about this video when we are in class to see if everybody actually watched it. All right, thank you very much. See you in class.